Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction, and Merry Christmas Eve. On this podcast, we go week to week, watching something together, providing some analysis and some recommendations along the way. On today's episode, we'll be discussing the season finale of Pluribus. By the way, just announced recently that Pluribus through episode 7 was Apple TV's biggest hit, replacing the season 2 of Severance, which of course was huge. And that all goes to speak to the fact of the success of this show and this investment they made in Vince Gilligan's follow-up to the hugely successful Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I am curious to see how the ratings might have dropped off from the beginning of the season towards the end. And of course, those numbers, by the way, were based on a partial season, so I'm sure the numbers will get even bigger, especially so close to the end. But as often is the case with Gilligan's first seasons, both for Breaking Bad and for Better Call Saul, ratings did seem to dip over the course of that first season. So very curious to get Sona's impressions of this final episode and whether she thought the season was successful overall, and specifically whether this was a appropriate wrap-up to season 1. Also, a few quick show notes since this is the holiday and I have very limited time to edit this episode. My apologies for any roughness in the conversation. It is pretty much going to be our conversation published as is, with very little manipulation or re-editing at all. So this is a bit of a time crunch considering the holidays. However, do expect some additional episodes over the course of the week, probably talking to multiple different folks about this finale of Pluribus, but along with those conversations, discussions about things that I've been watching, Fallout, the upcoming final episodes of Stranger Things, and of course, a lot of year-end content where I am going to be reviewing some of these year-end releases, and of course, ranking them if they do end up on my best of lists, both for TV and for movies. And of course, any of you out there who'd like to participate in those episodes, do drop me an email, needssomeintroduction@gmail.com. Mention any TV shows or movies you'd like me to shout out here on the podcast, especially if it's something obscure or if it has a very personal connection and you'd like to make a pitch for audiences to watch it more broadly. And of course, even better, feel free to record yourself through your voice memo app on your phone and attach it to an email, and I'll include it here in one of those year-end episodes. And of course, January, such an packed month of new releases. We have The Pitt Season 2 coming in the first week of January, and then quickly thereafter, a new season of The Night Manager, the 4th season of Industry that Darren and I will be recording coverage of week to week, a 2nd season of Hijack on Apple TV, and we'll have the Academy Award nominations, we'll have the Golden Globe Awards, lots of content to cover all in January. So if you're curious about any of those topics, make sure you subscribe so you know when those episodes become available. So with that all out of the way, have a Merry Christmas, enjoy any of your holiday celebrations. I hope you all have time off with your family, and let's get into that conversation with Sona. All right, Sona. So first of all, happy holiday vacation for you.
Happy holidays. Happy holiday break.
Do you have people coming to your house today?
Oh, I wouldn't be talking to you right now if I did. I would be panic purging and cleaning. No, we're having a quiet Christmas Eve, and then tomorrow we'll go see some family in New Jersey. How about you?
We do have everybody coming over here, but
wow,
they are coming after. They're working today, or one of them is working. So they're all coming together afterwards. And which gives us, it's got pretty late today. But I already warned everybody in the preamble that I will not be editing this because there is still stuff that needs to get done, including some shopping for just some groceries before everybody shows up. So although, as usual, I just went grocery shopping yesterday, but of course, I have to go grocery shopping again because that's just how it is.
It never ends.
It never ends, especially during the holidays. But yeah, it's been a pretty mellow day, actually. And we have some sun, so it's not so bad. Okay, Sona. So this episode of Pluribus, the season finale, episode 9, is called La Chica or El Mundo. So that's the question that we get at one point from Anusos. What do you want to save, Carol? The girl or the world? You have to decide. Or maybe not. We'll have to discuss that. I don't want to get your general impressions of this episode yet. I want to kind of walk through it first because I have opinions and I'm very curious to see where you land on it as well. But before we get to that, really intriguing, obviously fascinating episode. And I wanted to break down, we don't have to go moment for moment, a lot of speculation. Obviously, we're at the end of the season, although we can speculate on season two. But I did want to touch on some incredible things, obviously, that happened in this film, this episode, and just incredible production design, like literally traversing the world for some of these scenes. In the very first episode, we are in the mountains of Peru, in the very first section.
Yes.
Scene. Incredibly beautiful. And I can't wait to hear your feedback on this. I found this sequence of the show to be utterly chilling because we see this, what plays out over the course of this entire episode in microcosm that we have. I forget, they've actually introduced this character before, though I think it's the first time we've ever seen her on screen. This Peruvian girl who, she is the first one. We knew that they had extracted her DNA and they were going to experiment for the first time. And apparently here she is. And really fascinating that she has explicitly said she cannot wait to join with her aunt and the rest of her tribe. And then you see this performance of the tribe, this kind of beautiful ceremony that is, it almost feels like it might be the type of ceremony you might do as a eulogy to someone who's dying, or as some kind of coming of age type ceremony. And you see her beautifully or wonderfully stroking this little goat that, she has this very sweet relationship with the goat, this poor little goat, by the way. And you see all this, and what's so chilling about it is, as I'm watching it, I'm like, this feels so warm and loving, and it is the supposed what's being sold here, that this kind of unification of the entity and how it is catered to everybody's cultural potentially their expectations, and this beautiful moment. And the second she is joined, it's like the pretense is gone,
business as usual,
and it's not cruel. I mean, it is cruel, I should say, but it's not malicious. It's the cruelty of this nonchalance, of this, like, how you as an individual explicitly no longer matter at all. And it is that pivot that is chilling to me anyway.
I think nonchalant is a good word to describe it. And I think it sets the tone for the episode, in that when I think back on it now, having watched it last night, I feel like it just overall had a sinister feeling to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this kind of sets all of that in motion.
And it's almost like exemplified by that sweet little goat chasing after her. And of course, the goat now, it doesn't matter anymore, right? The goat is just free. And it is in this, like, following the letter of the law. You're free, animals. You're all free. But that little goat is probably going to get eaten by a wolf tonight, right? So it's like, I know, it's so sad, but it is the cruelty of this, again, this nonchalance, this kind of like, so what if some of us die or something bad happens to some of us, doesn't matter, because like the hive continues to evolve, or maybe not evolve, by the way, just kind of simply exist. And that's really fascinating to me. But like you said, it really sets really splashes cold water on what we saw at the end of last week's episode. And by the way, I just saw last week's episode again because my wife finally caught up with the season so that we could watch this episode. So really fresh in my mind how in those final moments when Zosha is recalling that memory, it's this illusion. And I asked that question in the podcast, is this the illusion that she's individuating, or is it because she just changed the pronoun from we to I? So what is happening there? And then seeing this, it's like, no, this is cold water, everybody. It's like, once the switch is flipped, it's like, okay, our job is done, back to whatever, piling, doing the cuddle puddle somewhere and waiting for whatever, for the giant satellite to be built.
Yeah. On a lighter note as well, I returned to my thoughts about egg collection while we were watching these scenes in Peru, because they showed the chickens and they were in that pen. And I thought, like, oh, maybe they do have a system in place for collecting the eggs. And then at the end, when the girl becomes one with the hive mind, you see her just walk by and casually fling the gate open. So letting loose all of the livestock that they were keeping penned up.
Exactly. Now they're free again, but it's like,
Yeah, so I still don't know the deal with the eggs and milk. Maybe also is a question, but anyway,
I didn't understand that of it, part of it either. When John Cena was on there on the
yeah.
video explaining where they can still get food from, they're saying some animals are kept for milking and need to be milked.
Oh, did they say that? Thank you for reminding me.
He did say that, obviously goats and cows and other animals that get
See,
milked.
but I then that to me raises questions because
Yes, mhm,
animals don't naturally need to be milked,
correct.
right? And I think it probably causes them at least some level of discomfort
Exactly.
to
Yes,
be in the state of constantly needing to be milked.
correct.
So, how to square that with the nonviolence issue, I'm not sure.
Yes, I feel exactly the same way. Something I hadn't even considered until I was again rewatching this season with my wife. And he mentioned that specifically that that's another source of protein for them. But like you mentioned, I'm like, well, how long does that last? Because the only reason those cows and such continue to generate milk is because they are constantly milked. But at some point,
Right.
like you said, if you're not being cruel about it, then you would eventually, once they run dry, you would not force milk them,
Right.
which
Being kept in a
which
constant state of lactation is not the
exactly.
natural state for them.
Exactly. So eventually they're going to, like, if the milk doesn't come on its own, they're going to have to stop milking it. And that's yet another source of protein that is going
Yeah.
to dry up for them, too. So, yeah, even that is not a reprieve of any kind. I mean, like you said, that's a loophole, right? Like you can imagine if that's okay, if that's allowable,
Right.
then
It's a slippery
every
slope
single
then.
animal that can be milked must begin. You must start milking them right now and grow as many of them as you can to keep milking them because that would generate plenty of protein. But then, of course, it's also very inefficient because those animals all have to eat all day long to produce that milk.
Mm.
And then we see this the arrival by plane of this the cure, which of course has to be non-invasive, so it has to be transmissible through. I mean, I guess it was transmissible through breathing as well from before, so not so surprising.
Mm.
But we do see something very important here. Even though Carol, of course, is freaking out about this by the end of the episode, it is still important, I think, that they cannot force her to inhale this. They are still trying to do the charm offensive, speaking of last week's episode, of to get this girl to join, right? So they're not like pinning her down or
Hmm.
transmitting it to her from her by her aunt or something, or surprising her with it, or putting it into her
Sure.
food.
But she
She's
wants
like,
to do it.
she does,
So
right? True.
a different situation. Who knows?
Right. And we know and that's a very good point. There are ways that they probably can find loopholes because they have found loopholes for Carol. So they're looking for loopholes
Yeah.
everywhere all the time, I'm sure. And I do have a question for you when we get to the end, if you want to speculate on it, but you want to start thinking about it now. I'm so curious as to what the goal of that is, right? Like, why can there be no outliers? And I think that makes me think about where the direction this show might be going in the future. And of course, as chilling as this is, where they all walk away and leave everything at the end of this scene, it again made me remember, or like again, like some cold water to kind of reset our expectations. And of course, this whole episode is about Carol resetting herself to where she was at the beginning of the season to a large part, but a reminder of like what is being lost, right? It is all of these cultural differentiation that's all just flattened out by joining this one giant hive mind. Basically, culture and cultural differentiation is all wasteful if you want to be purely efficient about it, right?
Yeah. It's unnecessary.
Any differentiation, right? Like different
Yeah.
tastes, different clothing, different hairstyles, all of this is a waste of time. You can all just
Yeah.
wear a uniform and shave your head the same size to the same pattern, and that's it. It's all much more efficient. It's also much more bland.
Right.
We could all drink this goop as well. And then, of course, we jumped to Albuquerque. I love this opening sequence here where, they're watching on the television. They have like the satellite coverage, like the drone footage of the
Yes,
car
of the
as it's
ambulance.
approaching. Very funny. And again, this hive mind is all of this conversation here with Sosha. First of all, of course, that Sosha is no longer in the form of or in performing this individuation that we saw last episode, back to like business as usual. There's pressing things here that it needs to be focusing on. But I also think it's very interesting that when Carol, first of all, says, has done an assessment here that it's probably best that we're not here when he arrives. So very calculated there, just intelligent. But also, I like the fact that Carol says, "Oh, do you think he's dangerous to me?" And they're like, "Not to you,
Not you.
but to like us, probably." I mean, put a knife to our throats not that long ago. So, and then of course, this is an incredible sequence when Manusos finally arrives, and
The humor here
yes,
also is amazing. In such a dark episode, there are some really funny moments.
yes, the whole situation where, well, first of all, him like fixing his hair and stuff, where he's been literally like, living as wildly as possible for the longest
Yeah.
time. I'm sure he's not washed his clothes at all this whole entire period of time. And he's trying to make himself presentable. But all of this, like Carol trying to speak Spanish to him, having the translator, how he freaks out, and just immediately this butting of heads of these two people that, in very different ways are very similar or at least similar in the fact that they both very much see the world in a very particular way and assume everybody must comply with that. And I love the fact that she's like yelling at him being, I'm not an idiot. I have it in airplane mode, which is actually intelligent that I didn't even think about that. At this
I
point, I
didn't
figured
either.
she wouldn't have even cared at this point if they're listening in
I
because
was
she's
shocked that Carol knows how to use a cell phone.
that's a good point, right? You know what? But that speaks to the fact that she writes sci-fi stories and stuff, so I'm sure she probably understands technology. But she's probably doesn't want to engage with it that much, especially with the social media part of it. I think that's something that's really interesting that I realized over the course of this episode is that Carol, of course, is finding that she needs human connection more than she probably expected, and probably not the way she perceived herself because of you think about the life she had, not only now in this situation where she's this only the only individual among this hive mind in her immediate surroundings anyway, but you think about the way she was living her life before, and I think that's very intentional, that she was like, she was this writer, she lived in this bubble, Helen was her assistant and of course her wife as well, so she was a buffer for her against the
Mm.
world. And then the version of the world she interacted with when she was on these book tours were people who like loved her books, so even that she's like in this bubble of limited experiences, she is a prickly person but doesn't want to deal with the prickliness of other people. And she has these buffers. And honestly, I think that's part of the reason she probably doesn't have a cell phone. She probably doesn't want to be engaging directly with her fans and probably people giving negative reviews. She literally turns to her wife and says, "What are the reviews?" Like she needs someone to buffer her from that because it would probably be antagonistic if she was directly engaging with it. So it's so funny that now in this world, she again is, and I think very intentionally they're making this a parallel, that she has continuously as soon as she had the means to it, has given herself some kind of buffer from the prickliness of other people. And all of a sudden now, not only like since the hive mind thing, is she suddenly having to deal with someone as abrasive as she is, but potentially like even from decades before that, she's never had to deal with someone like this, like Manusos being like right in her face. And they have to work together.
You're reminding me of that phrase that what you don't like in other people is what you don't like in
Oh,
yourself.
absolutely. Yes. It's like when you see that something in your kids that you can't stand and you're like, oh, that's the stuff that is most irritating, is the stuff that you already see as a flaw in yourself and reflected right back at you. Yes. And here she is in that same situation where Manusos is, I mean, even pricklier. But of course, a reminder that that is the thing that we don't have with the hive minds. They don't have to negotiate with each other.
True.
Everything's already agreed upon. And that's not how it works with Manusos for sure. I love how he immediately disposes of the phone. And she's just like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, I would be aggravated too.
All this negotiation is very funny though. Like she's like, you come
But
in my house.
the translator is
Yes.
hysterical that even as it's stuck in the sewer grate, it's continuing to translate.
I like the detail of this. They really thought this out. I like that it's still translating when they're arguing above the grating, But then when she walks away, it's only translating his side of the conversation. So like
Yes.
they actually thought about like, well, how far would her voice travel? So a lot of that's very funny. I like that. What does it keep saying that whenever he says Carol Sturka, it says what is like unrecognizable word.
Yes. Yes.
That's very funny. But all these negotiations, don't bring the machete, but we'll talk inside my house. And he's like, no, we talk inside the ambulance. And she's like, I'm not getting in your ambulance.
Yeah, I mean, that is a creepy idea.
Yes,
I could see why she said no. The stranger shows up, you don't speak the same language. He's saying, essentially, get in the back of my van. So,
exactly. And within a minute of meeting each other.
yeah.
So the compromise is we will talk in an open field, but we have to have an umbrella so they can't read our lips. Manusas is extremely paranoid, but probably right correctly so.
Right.
And how does this all resolve itself? So first he does put the phone down the drain. She's just like, I'm done with this. He then retrieves the phone down the drain. Very resourceful of him. I forgot about the magnet on the back of the phone.
I forgot too. I thought he was just going to have to edge it up inch by inch.
Yes.
With
I'm like, is that going to work? And then like,
with
of
the
course,
machete.
the magnet. Yeah. Some of the translation is very funny. I like how he's like, why are you looking for a bug in the house? And he's like, an insect. What are you talking about? So some of this is, she's trying to be like, what would be the word in Spanish? It's very funny. Very funny. And then they finally agree to go in the house. I'm not sure why she's so comfortable in the house. Of course, she doesn't want to be outside, or maybe doesn't want to be outside, but I don't know how safe she is in the house unless she assumes that they're spying on her.
I wonder if it almost became a stubbornness thing at a certain point, that she wants to talk in the house. And so she wants to get in the house, even if it's not logical anymore at a certain point.
And then we see Manusos in like full paranoid mode, being like, there's got to be a listening device in your house somewhere. And she's like, what are you talking about? There's nothing in here. She's become very trusting of these others.
By the way, the listening device was Zosha. So
how's that? Oh, right. Exactly. Right. Yeah. That's what's so funny about it. Exactly. Like, I think that's probably why she felt that way. She's like, why would they even need to? Since I pick up the phone to them every 5 minutes. And also, like you said, Zosha's in the house. So they don't need any additional information. But of course, I think that Manusas has a general understanding of how this thing works, but not like completely understanding.
For sure.
I mean, he even when he finally does decide to pick up the phone, he adapts very quickly, by the way. But that when he picks up the phone and he says, put me on the line with the other person, like as if Zosha would be like more forthcoming. So I don't think he understands exactly that, he's going to get the same answer from everybody.
Right.
But a couple of very interesting points here. What did you think about the moment when, of course, he's looking for a tracking device? He does find a weird device inside the liquor cabinets. And she's like, what is this device? And turns out, we didn't put it there. It was actually Helen who put it there. What did you think about that moment?
Well, I get it on several levels. First, as someone who has had eggs retrieved and tried to talk my doctor into agreeing with me that a couple of glasses of wine would be fine during this very stressful time, and had the doctor tell me, look, just don't drink, okay? I get why you would want to drink during that process. And as someone who has a history of dealing with people with alcohol abuse issues, I also understand the desperation that can drive you when you love someone and you know that you can't control their behavior, but you're still trying to control their behavior somehow.
Yeah. And the fact that Helen couldn't just be upfront about her or couldn't trust her is pretty interesting character development here. Again, the idea that, like we touched on last week, that there are still things that are unknowable, even when supposedly that's not possible anymore. But apparently there are still mysteries in all of our behaviors and things that are hidden from us that we don't even understand. So that was really cool. Although I have to say that what this immediately made me think about was, again, the eggs. So when I was watching last night.
Oh, definitely designed to do that. Yes. They've been strategically mentioning the eggs here and there.
Right. So we keep it on our minds. So we're like, aha, I know where this is going. Like when they started having the conversation in the ski lodge, I was like, oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah. And I will say, as as you know, I try not to read too much online about whatever show we're discussing because because I'm very easily influenced, basically. But scrolling on Reddit, a lot of people, just by the post titles, had figured this egg situation out.
Really, by the titles, interesting.
No, I'm saying just by the titles on the post, even though I didn't click them.
Oh, yes, okay.
The title of the Reddit post, as I was scrolling through, that feed it creates for you, would be like, they already have Carol stem cells because of
Right.
her eggs or whatever. So,
Yeah,
so I was
I
a
had
little bit
heard that.
spoiled on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah, I had heard that earlier as well in back when they mentioned the stem cell thing back in when she was with Mr. Diabate. I do like that. Once again, very interesting that Manusos adapts so quickly to the situation. First of all, she's like, "Oh, stay in my neighbor's house. I gave you some new sheets. I set things up. I put some food in the fridge." And he's like, a hardliner again, being like, "I
Mhm.
will not. This is not your place." And she's like, "Look, if my neighbors come back, I'll square it with them. Just stop whining or whatever." And he like tries to be like very hard on her. And I called this out last week too. And she's like, "Oh, is that your ambulance outside? How exactly did you get here?"
Yep.
And I guess he's just kind of like, "Yeah, I guess I've already compromised my behavior." So
He's been writing little IOUs and stuff, though. So there is probably something on the ambulance as well.
do you think he got a lot of singles? Like when he was going around getting that oil, first of siphoning oil out of people's cars. I'm not sure the money he was leaving behind would cover the actual oil he took. Plus, how many small bills did he have? Like, because I mean, at that point, what does it even matter? If he ran out of those bills, would he stop siphoning oil? Gas, I should say, from those cars. I don't know if that would be the case. So a lot of this was performative. For performing for who?
Just being a martyr.
Yes, exactly. But less and less so, by the way. I like that how he, immediately he's like, "Who are you talking on the phone with?" And she's like, "I was talking to the hive mind." And then she, and by the way, what like a jerk in a way, right? He's not willing to bend at all for Carol. So that the second that Carol leaves him there and says, "We'll talk more tomorrow," he immediately picks up the phone and like, "Bring me the girl that was there earlier, bring her to my house." And he starts as soon as like he uses immediately. Carol's like, "They can't lie, so just ask him whatever you want." And he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna find out everything that's happened, transpired between you and Zosha." And I'm like, Zosha, I mean, or this hive mind in general. And Carol freaks out. Like Carol's afraid of him knowing that Zosha was there. He knows everything now, every intimate detail of their relationship. I'm sure it's crazy.
Yeah. And her reaction to finding this all out, you can sense that she's just so frantic about it.
It's terrifying. And then, of course, when she confronts Zosha about it, I like how she gets territorial, being like, "Do not talk to him about it." And she's like, "I can't. This is like
Right.
my biological imperative. I have to do whatever." And she says to her, "This is really rough, by the way, that this is hard for you to understand, Carol, but I love him as much as I love you." And this has got to be like mind spinning for her, no matter how rational it may sound. Of course, how can you accept the fact like she literally has this is her lover as far as in her perception of things,
but
and
she
it's like
can't
this
bring
person
herself
I've
to
never
say
spoken
that.
to before. How's that?
But she can't bring herself to say that out loud
Right.
because on some level, I think she knows that there are
Of
so
course.
many ethical issues about this. And I think she is ashamed of it on some level. She can't ever say it out loud.
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating about her running out to intercept her is the first time. There's multiple trips back to that
Yes.
house, a bunch of them actually, but that first time is exactly what you're saying. What she's being driven by is this embarrassment that Manus is going to find out how compromised she is. But she can drag Zosha out of there. He literally picks up the phone and says, "Send me another one."
Another one.
Another one. Send me another one. Rick.
Like
Rick.
he's just going to work through every single one.
Exactly. Or not until they all leave town.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, when she retrieves her and brings her back to the house and starts having this very difficult conversation about the relationship that they perceive with someone they've just met for a second and supposedly have equal love for her, although they've been living together for months now at this point. And anyway, all this is very disturbing to Carol, but even more disturbing when she starts to have a conniption, the same. And at first she's like, what's happening right now? And again, this fascinating, shoes on the other foot, that when she was screaming in these people's faces and making them all glitch, that these Lakshmi blames her for it. And she's like, this
Mm-hmm.
isn't my fault. These hive mind people have their own weird ways. I can't control all that. But now, of course, she's vested in one of them in the same way that Lakshmi was vested in her family members. And she now is, personalized that behavior and being like, you did this to me. And
Great
immediately goes,
moment too when, well, I'm jumping ahead, but
sure, go
because
ahead.
you mentioned Lakshmi. Great moment when Zosha says to Carol when the phone is ringing, "Do you want to know who that is?" And Carol
That was
says, "I
hilarious
already
when the
know."
phone was ringing. We were watching
Yes.
this with my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, and she hasn't watched the show, or she's watched a couple episodes with us just during this rewatch while she's been visiting us. So really, she's not really fully understanding. And the phone is ringing and ringing, and she's like, "Why is she not answering the phone?" And me and my wife are like, "She knows who's calling. She knows who it is. Of course, it's Lakshmi." I like her immediately. She just picks up the phone. She's like, "Wasn't me this time."
Yeah.
But of course, poor Rick has gone over there. And fascinating. We speculated on this last week, but of course, that radio broadcast that he had intercepted. Again, this guy's really smart. I mean, maybe too smart. I think that he has figured this all out within seconds when she mentions to him that there's some kind of way they communicate. And he's like, oh, there was that weird radio broadcast. And he's
Mm-hmm.
confirmed this basically, right? He has his radio with him. He has made this behavior glitch. He's listening to what she says extremely closely, by the way. Every piece of information that she has given to him, he's weaponized in some way. When she said, like, I freaked them out, they all left for a period of time because, I yelled in their faces and they all glitched. And he's like, okay, I'm going to do that again. And she mentioned that there's some kind of radio waves they communicate with. And I found that weird radio broadcast. So I'm going to experiment with this. I'm going to make this guy have a glitch. And then I'm going to listen to that signal. And that's exactly what we see, right? It goes from that steady pattern to this like static, and then back to the steady pattern again. And when that static is in play, he's trying to lure Rick back to his body. I forgot to mention something earlier on in that early conversation when he's trying to be a little more polite and try to get Carol on his side, not snapping his fingers at her. I love that.
Snapping
I
scene
don't
also
respond to
very
snap.
funny.
I don't respond to snap, but she snaps back at him later on when she's drinking. I like that very much too. But all those interactions were great. But before he gets to the snapping and yelling commands, this guy must be very tough to get along with, period, by the way, based on this behavior.
Yeah.
But that he had said, seeing this in much more supernatural terms, that these things have come and stolen their souls, and that they are evil and need to be exterminated, basically. That, if they can't be the way they were before, they all need to die, which seems extremely severe. And of course, Carol does not want to hear that at all. And but you see that she has come around to really being like on Mr. Diabate's side. She now has a relationship with this hive mind. So when he's saying it's evil and we have to kill them all, she's like, no, they are still people.
Mm-hmm.
And he reads that. I don't know if Carol, when she says that, she means they're still those individual people, or if they are just a different type of people. She does say that, right? That they're different now, but they're still people. And I think he reads that as, oh, we can turn them back to the way they were. And maybe that's the case. Maybe that's actually the case. Do you think that's possible, by the way? Like, what do you think if Rick had somehow come back into his body? What do you think the outcome of that would have been? Is Rick the same person he was before? But of course, he has the memory of being the hive mind, right? Is that how you read that?
Would they remember it? I don't know. I feel like they wouldn't. I don't know why I think that though.
I mean, if that had happened to you and you like plugged into some, the Matrix or something, I mean, when you come out of the Matrix, you still remember being in the Matrix, right? Although that's obviously an individual inside of a, play, basically like in a virtual world. But I don't know. I kind of read it the same way. You think they would just forget everything that happened in the meantime?
Yeah, I feel like it would just be a blackout. I
It
guess we
could be
need to
like
know
too
more
much
about how the
information to
virus
process.
works. Sorry, say that again.
I was just saying that it could be like too much for you to process, like an individual brain to be like at one time, I could hear 5 billion voices at the same time. any
Yeah,
waking any waking voice was in my head at the same time. An individual cannot process all that.
it feels to me like this is something that kind of hijacks your brain. And when the hijacker is gone, there won't be any memory of that. But I don't know why I think that.
I think that would be a better outcome because if we do see that happen, if you're just like coming back to and you're like, where am I?
Right.
Who are
Like
you?
being in a coma.
Yeah, is actually a better outcome than what I actually think might happen, which is like you are disconnected from the hive mind. You remember being in this hive mind, and almost like a form of withdrawal where you're like unable to, potentially want to redraw, want to re-merge.
Go back to that.
Right, because you basically had this, whatever that sense is of unity among all thought, brains in the world. And I've kind of been working on that assumption because I kind of feel like that's going to be the crisis point at some point. Like, if you could fix this, do people want to go back to the way it was? I mean,
Right.
in practical terms, it makes sense, right? Culture comes back, and the
Innovation. Yeah.
innovation comes back, but all the tough parts about life come back too, right? Although you don't starve
Sure.
to death. But in a way, you don't really starve to death, right? Because think about it, if one of you survives, then all of you have survived in some way, right?
Mm.
Or the memories of all of you. Anyway, Carol puts an end to this experiment by bringing her shotgun, the one from the police car. She figured out how to release it the other day.
Yes.
And that makes Manusso's release Rick. I did like, by the way, the way this all starts out, where she's in the middle of her conversation with Zosha,
Yeah.
and that Zosha, said in the middle of the conversation, just goes like, "Sorry to interrupt the conversation, Carol,
Yeah.
but I something's about
Something's
to
about to
happen."
happen.
And she puts
Yeah.
the pillow down to like so she doesn't fall on the floor, and she starts having this conniption, and then Carol's like, "I've seen this before. Oh, it's when I'm
Yes.
yelling at someone's face. Oh my god, that's what he's doing right now." So she storms right over there, eventually with a shotgun. And of course, at the end of this, Osha goes, "You know what this means? I'm sorry, Carol, but of course it means that they all have to get away from." I like how this is all happening, by the way, as she is arguing with Manussos after the fact. You see, my wife actually pointed this out. You just see a string of red lights in the distance. It's like everybody's just abandoning ship.
Yep.
But this time, she tells Manussos, "Look, there's food here. And if you ever need anything, pick up the phone. I'm sure there'll be a voice recording there in Spanish telling you to leave message, but they need their space. And if he needs anything from them in the future." But Carol this time goes with the others. And then the final section of the episode, this is a long episode. This is like the last 20 minutes practically of the show, is really her like on this honeymoon with Zosha, this kind of fantasy of the way things could be. And
Hmm.
again, all of the abrasiveness of humanity is all gone. Everything is like exactly how she could only fantasize about it being. I was like, could you imagine how great this would be, by the way? Like, if you don't know how to ski, you literally have like the greatest skier and the greatest ski instructor in this person next to you. This person can teach you how to
Hmm.
ski like in 1 week. You'll be like an expert. And of course, here's where that other shoe drops, that we now have the ability. We've tested it out and it worked. We know this thing works. And we can make your stem cells. It's not as easy as just extracting it from your body, but we're working on it. And maybe in a month, maybe in 3, that Carol will have your stem cells. And then it'll be time for you to join us. How did you feel with it? I felt I got kind of it's intentional, obviously, but I got a little angry at the Zosha character here, or this entity, because I was really, I think this is the intention of the show, obviously, I was really starting to uh, buy into this, like, well, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe, I can communicate with this thing and it can give me the experience of an individual in the moment. And if that's the case, if it's like, hey, I can be this individual in the moment and actually give you that experience that it's not just like this generic hive mind, but it actually is able to access that individual experience. And maybe that's all going to happen at some point in the future. But, you start to convince yourself, maybe this does work for me. And this is really cold water being like, nope, just like we saw in that first sequence, this is all a performance. It's all the
Mm-hmm.
charm offensive. Like you mentioned last week, I was talking about the charm offensive being from Carol's side, and you're like, nope, this is the charm offensive only from that side. And I'm like, I think it was both. But to your point, to your point last week, I think absolutely this is just illustrating the fact that everything we saw last week was purely to get her to accept this merge.
So dark.
It's really creepy. But yeah, how did you feel when they're having this conversation? And Zosha's demeanor, what an incredible performance from this actress, by the way.
Yeah,
But her
agree.
demeanor changing to being like, oh, okay, like going from like the sales pitch to
Yeah.
suddenly being like kind of in the parental role. So very interesting pivot there, being like, yeah, it only gets better, Carol. When you merge with us and all these experiences, all this extra effort we put in will all go away because we don't need to anymore. You're already in the fold.
It's like when you're trying to your point, get your kids buy-in on something. So at first you're trying to pitch it like, it'll be fun, it'll be good for you, it'll be this, think of all the great things. And they just aren't buying it. And then at the end, you're kind of like, well, it's happening. So get on board.
Yeah, it's just going to happen. So you might as well accept.
I tried to make you think this was your choice, but we've run out of time. So now we have no choice but to tell you it's happening whether you wanted to or not.
And then, of course, we get back to Manusos. He's translating some, I guess he's just trying to become an expert at electronics. I see he's reading something about antennas and doing some translations to Spanish. So maybe he's trying to, this is my theory last week, trying to build some kind of dampener or some kind of thing, something that can disrupt the signal, because I think that's really the direction the show has to go in to a large extent. Even if it's just localized, you could release people, and then from there you can scale up from there. You can imagine, and that would be an interesting direction for the show to go in. Although that becomes like a much more of an action show, and this doesn't seem to be interested in being an action show, so we can save that for like, what do you foresee in a season 2? But of course, what did you think? We in the room when we were watching this yesterday, we were coming up with theories what might be in the box hanging from the helicopter. What were your takes? Did you have different theories as that scene unfolded?
Well, it doesn't make any sense for the size of the box. But what I was wondering about, given what had happened immediately prior, is if she demanded to have her eggs back, would they be forced to give them to her the same way they said they would have to give her an atom bomb? And could that be a way around this? So that was in my head, even though eggs are microscopic and there's no way you would need a box like that for
Yes.
them.
Well, I had a few theories. One was like, oh, it's Carol has requested like all the equipment she would need to build like some kind of radio antenna or something, and it's in the box. So she
Mhm.
has come back with the equipment, and of course they'd have to give her the equipment she asked for. So that was my first version of it. And then my second version is it's actually Carol in the box because Carol flipped out after that conversation and she needs to keep her distance from her.
It's a
And
padded
that's
box.
so then I thought that was Carol being dropped off in the box. But no, Carol's in the helicopter and there's an atom bomb in the box. Uh, and she has asked for it. They've set that up earlier in the season.
Yes.
And indeed, they'll give her an atom bomb. It does make sense, by the way, Sona, because the warheads are actually pretty small in those.
Yeah.
If you watch like Oppenheimer, you see them build the bomb that detonates, and they don't have to be as big as they were in that film. You can make them even smaller. So yeah, so it's probably it's just the warhead itself inside of the box. But I assume, I mean, she doesn't really need such a huge weapon. Although I would assume if yelling in their faces would cause a cataclysm, then detonating a bomb if they try to approach your house would probably be even more disturbing
Right.
to them, and probably cause much bigger shock waves, no pun intended. But now don't come near my house or I will detonate a warhead. And that's the setup for the season, apparently. I like the fact that she's reluctantly come back into the fold with Manusos going, you win. And what's in the box? A nuclear warhead, a nuclear bomb.
Hmm.
Okay, my question to you. How satisfying is this as a season finale?
This is the conflict I'm having.
Yeah.
Partly, I think it was a great episode. I don't have any complaints about the episode.
Right.
I had convinced myself that we were going to get some amazing cliffhanger that
Yes.
we could speculate over, partly because that's how so many shows are structured now, partly because, as you had mentioned, there's some things going around in the media about how the season finale is jaw-dropping.
Right.
So I kept waiting for that moment to come, and I don't feel like it did. What do you think?
Yeah, I like the episode. I like this entire season. I have recorded like a year end episode with Darren, which I haven't published yet. And we were talking about the fact that Darren did not have Pluribus on his top 10 because the show wasn't over. And I was critical of the same thing. Pluribus is like on every single top 10 list. I think it's the
Hmm.
second highest ranked of all the seasons of any show. And I thought that was ridiculous because I thought to myself, yeah, I've enjoyed the show. And by the way, sometimes critics get the entire season. The critics openly had only seen through episode 7. And of course, episode 8 came out last week. But most of these top 10 lists were published before they even got to see episode 8. And I'm like, how are you making this best show of the year when you haven't even seen how it ends? And so I was a little bit critical of that. But I agree. I think that it feels incomplete. And I don't know, as much as I enjoyed the individual episodes, if this is a satisfying ending. And I have to kind of go back to over and over again this season. I have complained about a lot of the new shows we watched that I'm like, I don't want to see the show just end on like a to be continued. I want a show to have some kind of ending. It doesn't have to wrap up all the storylines and be like, and now we're done if this is one and done, which of course it never was going to be. But I did want to have a sense that the stakes have changed from season 1 to season 2. And I don't
Hmm.
see that here. Like, we have
Hmm.
literally seen Carol, the only character with a character arc in this entire show, of course, was Carol. The entity has had no character arc at all, as far as we can tell. And Manusos, of course, has not changed at all. So the only character is Carol. And Carol went from basically being Manusos at the beginning of the season to being Mr. Diabate. And then in the final 3 minutes, turned back into Carol slash Manusos again at the beginning. So I'm like, what does that tell me? It doesn't do anything other than reset the stakes of the show. And I thought that was kind of disappointing, is basically what it comes down. Although, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
intrigued for sure with a season 2, but I had mentioned to my wife that my expectation of what we might see in this episode would be, imagine that Carol and Zosha have come to this, couplehood basically, and that Manusos is, they go to speak to Manusos, even in the context of this actual episode, that we could even have almost the entirety of the episode play out exactly the same way, and that they return to check in on Manusos, and that Manusos has built this receiver, this dampener. And could you
Mm.
imagine you end the season with the Manusos turning on this receiver, and that Zosha is now stripped away from the hive mind. And if it is Zosha again, then she may not even know who Carol is. So does Carol
Right.
want this thing that she supposedly wanted? And of course, this idea that now this device works. And then now that Carol has what she supposedly wanted, does she really want this? That would be much more intriguing to me, because thematically it would be, it would set up stakes for, okay, we have a solution. Do we want to use it? Or worse than that, like I mentioned before, could you imagine that Zosha is now stripped away from the hive mind and is begging to go back? So again, it's this situation that, like, you have the solution now, but does anyone want it except for you? Are you going to force them to do what you don't want them to do to you? So all of that, I think, would be really intriguing. And instead of just being like, they gave her the biggest grenade in the world, ta-da, see you next season. I'm like, what? I didn't really, it didn't really work for me as a season finale. But I'm still love the concept. I love the execution. I love Rhea Seahorn. I love this actor playing. I should remember these people's names for next season, but I love Zosha. I love Manusos, the actor playing Manusos. An incredible cast of folks. Every time they are in scenes together, just incredible sequences. Just incredible writing, beautiful, world traveling scenery, and so everything's aces across the board. But as a season finale, I didn't think this was very satisfying.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment completely.
Okay, here's where I want to do some speculation. Okay, so this hive mind thing, is this thing is this a bug that this programming that they have is killing them, starving them, and erasing all of the culture that came before? It seems like, in other words, it seems to be a strange that this would be the best version of this type of thing, right? Like that, the idea that you lose all your individuality, that it erases all of history in a way that doesn't seem to be the ideal version of this. And of course, that it would kill off most of the people who are infected with it. All of this does not seem to be like an ideal intentional programming. So if we assume that somebody programmed this virus, then, like I mentioned, teased here on the podcast before, it only makes sense to me that this is a weapon that's being projected onto somebody else.
Yeah, I think it matters what the purpose of the virus is, right? So I think I'm just restating what you said. If all of this is happening because that is the intention, it's all purposeful, then it can only be a weapon, right?
Yeah.
Unless I'm misunderstanding you.
No. I mean, that's basically my what I've come to as well. Like, I just have to assume that there's no other purpose for this thing other than to create a docile slave race to serve you, I assume, because you just think about all the things here that don't make any sense. Like, why would you make it these merged folks, this being, to be incredibly adept at every skill imaginable, right? You don't make them into like mindless zombies that kill each other off or kill off, another group of people. You make them like serve this other intelligence. And intelligence, right, by the way, like, Carol is the inferior race to this merged hive mind, right? So like, why would you set that up unless you were trying to create like basically a perfect personal assistant, like going back to that AI metaphor that I've made so many times before. It's like, unless you're trying to build that, but you want it to be like docile, to that it will like not try to usurp your power. Because what other purpose would it have? Like, why would it try to kill itself off? Why would it try to erase its own differentiation? Why would it be so docile that it can't even problem solve in any way to even preserve its own life, right? Like, none of these things make sense from like, it doesn't seem like any kind of biological evolution. It seems to be like a way to exterminate that race of beings. But then why make it like super intelligent and also servile unless you want it to serve you, right?
Right. I agree.
So yeah.
Which is very dark.
It's very dark. And do you anticipate that, if you were going to predict that, do you anticipate that we actually see some kind of aliens coming to take advantage of this servile race or not?
Well, I don't want there to be aliens.
You don't want that to happen. But if that's not the case, let's say that's not the case, how do you think this thing transmitted itself to? Do you think it's just accidental? Like, maybe it was just broadcast on some planet and the signal was just picked up by mistake all the way over here?
I feel like the only real answer is aliens.
Well, I mean, I think it is aliens, but if that's the case, do you think that they, this is 600 light years away that we picked up this signal? Do you think that this alien race out there, or maybe this will never be answered, by the way, but do you think an alien race out there was basically targeting Earth and saying, like, we want to inhabit that planet, exactly the type of show you do not want to watch? Or do you think that, on this planet, there was a war between two races and the signal was used on that planet, let's say, to brainwash another race of people, like a virus that only attacked a certain type of intelligence, and we just happened to capture that radio signal all the way out here. Just by chance, we like pointed the satellite in that direction, picked up the radio signal that's been broadcasting for hundreds of years. Just kind of we're hearing it now, but it was broadcast many hundreds of years ago, considering its distance. And we just accidentally infected ourselves with it by, say just having to find out what was in that radio signal. We accidentally infected ourselves with this thing.
Gosh, I hope it's not that, just an accidental tragedy.
It would be funny though if that was the case. Could you
It is
imagine
funny.
that? Like, it's not supposed to get that far, but radio signals just keep going, right? Like,
you guys did what?
I mean, people are watching I Love Lucy on some foreign planet, if hundreds and hundreds of years in the future, because those signals just keep going. We don't know where they're going. Maybe it was just an accidental, cross contamination. They don't even know if there's intelligent life. Who knows, right? So, but that would be a very funny irony where it's like, why did you do this to us? It's like, we didn't do this to you.
Right.
We didn't even know you were there.
This is all just a misunderstanding.
Right. But of course, we also are going to build an antenna. For all we know, this happened very far away, a long time ago, because now we are on Earth, in the context of the show. That is not we, but the we of the show are now building this giant antenna and looking to broadcast it in the direction of their best candidate, a planet for that might have intelligent life on it. So maybe the same thing. It's not even that it came from that specific planet. It's been hopping from planet to planet because, it's just this virus that spread off of some planet at some point and just keeps spreading and spreading and spreading from any intelligent source until they're all exterminate themselves, apparently, but very pleasantly. They love the experience of starving themselves to death. Very happy until
they're happy when they go.
Anyway, that's it. That's the season. And we'll have to, all this is speculation until then. Anything you wanted to shout out from the show specifically that you specifically enjoyed, but also I wanted to give you an opportunity, Sona. I've been reaching out to different listeners, reaching out to the other co-hosts, to anything you wanted to shout out for the year. It could be a performance that especially was good, or it could be a TV show that you think didn't get enough shout outs. Anything you wanted to shout out for your end?
I would say one TV show that we've been enjoying at home that I don't hear much about, and it's not a very serious show. It's a workplace comedy in the vein of The Office, is called DMV. Have you heard of it?
Oh, I've heard of it. Mm-hmm.
We really have been having fun watching it. It's very clever. It's very cute. It's a little bit absurd, but I don't like things that are too absurd. It's just the right amount of absurd. So that would be my recommendation if you're looking for something lighthearted to amuse you.
Did you guys ever finish Deli Boys?
Of course.
Of course. Yeah, that's on my long list of favorite shows of the year, but I definitely want to shout that one out. It is coming back for a second season, so I'm glad to see that for sure. In the vein of what you're describing, have you guys checked out The Paper at all, which is kind of like an Office sequel?
No, I remember hearing about it, but then I never actually watched it. Have you seen it?
I have not watched it. It's on NBC, but I think the whole thing's also available on Peacock, which I know you don't have. We've discussed this before.
Yes.
But I think it's on NBC, so you could probably watch it like on demand on your cable box if you have NBC, of course. Everybody, I think, has that. And also, there's another show that's in the vein of that. I think it's about like a college cheerleaders, which I've heard is very funny also, which I think is like...
Oh, really? I don't think I've heard of that one.
Stumble. It's called Stumble. And I think it's like also... it's paired up. I think it's The Paper and Stumble are on NBC at the same time. And I haven't watched any of that either, but I've heard that is very funny. And it's basically like, a mockumentary about like a college cheerleading squad and these competitive ones. And that's also supposed to be very funny, but it might be.
Now that you said the title, I think I did hear about it just last week, I feel like.
I think it just premiered recently, probably within the past month. And I paid like no attention to it, but then all of a sudden it got a lot of critical reviews. So I'm interested to. And of all the shows we covered this year, which would you say was your favorite?
Oh my goodness. I can't even remember which shows we covered this year.
I have we have Task, we have Your Friends and Neighbors, We had Severance season 2. We had The White Lotus.
I'm thinking we had that spy show too, right?
Oh, we had The Agency. Yes.
Probably White Lotus was my favorite of those, although I did really enjoy Task as well.
Yeah, Darren's favorite was White Lotus that we of our coverage, mine and yours. I liked all those shows, by the way. I liked. I think Severance didn't get
Yeah,
enough.
they were all good.
Yeah,
There weren't any that I disliked.
yeah, I feel like The Agency didn't get enough love, and it should have gotten more love. I
I
think that was
agree.
a very good season, and we are getting a season 2 of that. Loved The White Lotus, by the way, which again I feel like just to piggyback on what you're describing, that I feel like this year it was not on a lot of top 10 lists. Like everybody just takes it for great granted. Like, yeah, it was great. All the performances were great. I'm like, don't yeah that. We may not get that again for
Yeah,
like
it's not
with
easy.
exactly. That's not easy to do. It's very hard to do, actually. It's by the way, and it's also the fact that the novelty of it has worn off because it's like the third season of it, and everybody
Hmm.
talks about new shows and they don't even review old shows on a lot of these, critics lists and stuff. And I'm like, you get a show like that every year or two. Like, don't complain, people. Don't complain. So
The first thing that I remember when I think about the White Lotus were the three middle-aged
of
ladies, and I
course, yeah.
loved that dynamic so much.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, so that is definitely on my list as well. So I'll be publishing my list later in the week, and I'll have my performances of the year and TV. I think I'm doing TV shows first, and then probably next week I'll do my movies of the year, since I have quite a few movies I still got to catch up on before then. I probably won't be able to see everything, but I'll try to see all the big ones. I'm going to see Marty Supreme tonight, possibly, maybe tonight.
Nice.
And then I have there's a Brazilian film called The Secret Agent with Wagner Moura that I want to see as well. I think those are the last two that I want to definitely watch before I put my list together. But yeah, I got some time. I got some time to do it. So, all right, Sona, thank you again for the conversation.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday, and we
You too.
will
Happy holidays.
touch base again next week. Probably no, but I have something that we can watch on Netflix. I think the week after that, I'll send you details about it.
Cool.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.